We continue to follow breaking news here on CBS Sports HQ, where the Packers and Aaron Rodgers have agreed to a 4-year, $200 million deal that makes him the highest paid player in league history in terms of AAV. 38 years old through the month of December. And for the Packers, they do have a first-round pick this year, though it is late. 28th overall is what they've got happening at Lambeau Field. Davante Adams probably will get tagged today, so that stays intact. Then the question becomes, what about some other options through the draft, maybe free agency, to maybe get them a few more weapons, specifically the pass catchers? Those are the questions. My guys got some of the answers, both fantasy senseis joining me here on CBS Sports HQ, Jamey Eisenberg and Dave Richard. Jamey, I'll start with you. The thoughts at Aaron Rodgers staying in Green Bay long term.
Yeah, I think it's the best thing for his fantasy value. You know, you've seen what he's done with the LaFleur offense. You know, the big thing now is going to be what happens with Davante Adams. They clearly have to keep him, because if they lose Adams, that's going to be a big blow to obviously Aaron Rodgers' fantasy value. But you've seen what he's done the last couple of seasons. A number 1 finish, a top 10 finish. You know, he has the opportunity to still be a top 5 quarterback. He is my number 5 quarterback going into 2022, assuming that they do keep Davante Adams in the fold. But the upside is still there, even at his advanced age. I think he'll follow the Tom Brady route and continue to be good into his late 30s, maybe even early 40s if he plays out the length of this contract. But the fact that he stays in Green Bay, he could have still had great fantasy value in a place like Denver, maybe Tennessee, maybe Pittsburgh. But staying in the same place, continuing to build off what he's done. He's been an excellent fantasy quarterback, obviously, the entire time of his career so far. Fantastic with LaFleur. That should continue. So another top 5 finish should be in the opportunity for him in 2022.
And I agree that he is a top 5 fantasy quarterback. And just think about where he was in 2019. He was not a top 5 fantasy quarterback. And not only were fantasy managers thinking, oh, is this the end of Aaron Rodgers? But the Packers were too. They went in that draft, they got Jordan Love, and now Aaron Rodgers has just absolutely decimated that. Here's one of my favorite stats on Rodgers. Last 2 years, he's given you at least 22 fantasy points in 26 of 32 games. That is an 81% hit rate. Do not let this guy fall out of your top 5. The one thing I'm worried about is that I think the casual fantasy manager will overvalue Aaron Rodgers. We've seen them do that with past MVPs at the quarterback position. We've seen them do that to the point where they're taking quarterbacks in round 1. I don't think that's going to happen here. But I wonder if fantasy managers start to lean toward taking Aaron Rodgers in rounds 3, rounds 4. These are Joe Public type players, not necessarily shrewd fantasy managers like a lot of you watching might be. I think if you can get Aaron Rodgers in round 6 or later, you're crushing it. That's what the goal should be.
All right, Jamey, let's follow up on that. Again, you guys have updated your list. And again, Aaron Rodgers' top 5 rankings. What do you anticipate from him? Again, when they drafted Jordan Love, all that he's done is do back-to-back MVP-type seasons. Is there a ceiling above that, or do you anticipate there's some fluctuation with Rodgers, Jamey?
Well, I would draft another quarterback from the Packers, because clearly the motivation is there to help him continue to produce at a high level, or cause some drama in the front office, you know, whatever it is that has motivated this guy for the last 2 seasons. I think we still need to see what the rest of this receiving core looks like, because if I'm Marquez Valdez-Scantling, I'm trying to get a big deal someplace else, because, you know, guys that can run like him and make plays down the field like him are going to be certainly coveted. So he may not be able to stay in Green Bay, depending on what they do with Adams, if they work out a long-term deal with a franchise tag. Robert Tonyan, you know, they might have to upgrade the tight end position if Tonyan decides to leave. We'll see about Allen Lazard as a restricted free agent. You know, but this team is going to be very good once again. You know, I think you just heard Jason Lockenford talk about that in terms of what the NFC looks like versus the AFC. You know, you have a new coach coming in Minnesota. You have a new situation in Chicago with a new head coach there as well. So Detroit's still in a rebuilding situation. So the Packers are going to be in a good spot because they have their quarterback and their MVP back-to-back coming back once again. So I think Rodgers still has the opportunity to be one of the elite fantasy quarterbacks. You know what he does a little bit with his legs, and that's kind of, I think, why it keeps him from being ahead of like a Lamar Jackson for me. I still think Jackson, if he's right, is a better fantasy quarterback. But when you get to the guys that just throw the ball, he's in the conversation with the best of the best ever. Certainly still one of the best in 2022. So we'll see what the receiving core looks like. Again, the big domino is still Davante Adams. If for whatever reason Adams leaves Green Bay, which it doesn't seem possible, but if that does happen, then Aaron Rodgers is not a top 5 quarterback, because we have to see what this receiving core does look like. But as things stand right now, he is a top 5 guy worth taking, you know, somewhere in that round 4 to 7 range, depending on how quarterbacks come off the board.
And then you've got to ask yourself, well, what happens to the running backs in Green Bay? Because they've got Aaron Jones and they've got A.J. Dillon, and that's an unbelievable combo. And I think they're going to continue to rotate between those two. But there's no chance in the world that the Packers are about to go to becoming a run-heavy team, not with the money that they're putting in Aaron Rodgers' pocket. This is easy. I think Rodgers continues to be the priority in this offense. He's going to throw downfield to Davante Adams a ton. There is an unbelievable rookie class of wide receivers about to come into the NFL. Losing Marquez Valdez-Scantling, no sweat off the Packers' back. They're going to be able to find somebody else in this draft, maybe somebody a little bit better, maybe somebody who's a little bit more of a do-it-all receiver rather than just a deep ball threat like MVS was, who can help make Aaron Rodgers an even more efficient fantasy quarterback. I'm good to go with Aaron Rodgers as my starting quarterback, even at a time where it's kind of cool to get the quarterback that runs a lot. I think Rodgers can make up for that with his arm.
All right, I'm glad you brought up sort of maybe the other options. It is a deep wide receiver class. I'll let you guys go, but before I do, Davante Adams, those two have been electric under Matt LaFleur in the last few seasons. Where were you guys thinking about Davante without Aaron Rodgers? And, of course, where do you have him as today? We'll go Dave, and then Jamey will follow before we wrap things up.
I'm just assuming he's going to stay in Green Bay. I don't think Aaron Rodgers would agree to such a big deal and then watch the Packers let Adams go out the door. Those two are BFFs. So I would imagine that Adams will still remain a solid top 10 pick in all fantasy drafts. I'm still going to take Cooper Kupp ahead of him. I think that Kupp does pick up where he left off last year. I think Adams right behind him. If those two guys went back-to-back in fantasy drafts, call it 8th and 9th overall, it wouldn't shock me in the least.
Jamey?
Yeah, Adams is number 2 for me. You know, I think you look at just what the opportunity is to stay with Aaron Rodgers. You know, still an elite playmaker. You can make a case that he's the number 1 receiver still in fantasy based on the consistency of what these two guys have done together. But, you know, Cooper Kupp coming off the year that he had, we'll see what happens with the Rams in terms of what happens with Robert Woods, what happens with Odell Beckham, clearly as a free agent, and what they decide to do there. But just looking at what Kupp did last season, it's a little hard to overlook that and not think that Matthew Stafford and Kupp can connect at a high level once again. But those are the top 2 receivers. Those are the first 2 receivers that will come off the board. You're going to see Justin Jefferson and Jamar Chase well within the conversation of guys that can go as the number 1 or number 2 receiver. And then when you get into dynasty and sort of the long-term future, those 2 guys are better than Kupp and Adams. But as we talk about redraft leagues, Kupp 1, Adams 2. You tell me Adams is 1 and that's your favorite receiver you're taking because of what the track record is with those 2 guys. As long as they stay together, then I think that's not a big deal at all. But Kupp 1, Adams 2, those are the 2 best guys by far.
Gents, thank you very much. Dave Richard and Jamey Eisenberg breaking down the fantasy perspective of the Aaron Rodgers news today. They'll be talking about on Fantasy Football Today, Heath Cummings, Adam Azer, and the entire gang. Download it and follow if you haven't already. Graphically, by the way, you notice some of Jamey's rankings. Those were early consensus numbers that we showed you. But again, Rodgers still say a top 5 pick. Davante Adams, 1A, 1B. It'll be interesting to see how the guys break it down.
Do you want a sports network that delivers everything that matters about the game? The highlights, the picks, the instant analysis. No yelling, no fake debates, no politics. Hit the subscribe button and never miss a moment.